This interview was originally recorded on November 27th, 2023. ¿Qué onda? Hi, it's Jeremy Bowditch. Today on Everyone Eats, we're switching it up with a dual language episode. This episode can be heard in English and en español. To help with our Spanish language interview, we partnered with Carmen Gonzalez, a great producer from a local youth radio and journalism program, Boyle Heights Beat. You'll hear her in conversation with today's guest, Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez from Council District 1. She represents 22 neighborhoods, including Echo Park, Highland Park, and Chinatown in Los Angeles City Hall. She was elected in 2022 on a progressive campaign for reducing police investment to fund community programs. What happens to people fighting for a better world when they take that fight to City Hall? Let's find out. Todos Comen está inspirada en La Defensa, una organización de defensa 501. Everyone Eats is inspired by La Defensa, a FEM-led 501c4 advocacy organization dedicated to shifting Los Angeles County's reliance on criminalization and incarceration towards systems of care that center human dignity. Find out more at ladefensa.org. Welcome to Everyone Eats. Welcome everyone from the city of Los Angeles. I'm here at City Hall with Carmen and Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez.
Hola, Eunisses, ¿cómo estás?
Hi, Eunisses, how are you? Hi, I'm great. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming. Jeremy can explain a little bit about what the podcast is about, but really the conversation we want to have today is to understand a little bit more about your platform as a councilwoman, but also a little more about the work that the city council does in general in passing laws and in protecting the rights of Los Angelinos.
Sí. Pero si hay... if there's enough needs materiales para todos la gente, porque tan muchas personas tener nada? Or if there's enough material for everyone, why are there so many people with nothing? Tener hambre, si bebiendo en la calle. There are many people hungry, people living on the streets, with no health care, no access to doctors. Y nosotros queremos. And we want to know why. Y that's why we're here today.
So,
The first question we have is
usted organizó...
Why did you organize to prevent the county from expanding jails and building new ones? You founded La Defensa, a prison abolition organization. You took this message to the voters, and the voters said, we want it, this is what we want. Why do you think your message resonated so much with voters? Because the way I talked about the vision with them helped them understand what I was trying to do. Because a lot of people, when they hear you're an abolitionist, that you're trying to push those laws, that you're trying to take money from the police, say, why do you want to do that when I don't feel safe? And I had to explain to the people at the door, because it was the first question they asked me when they saw me, when I was knocking on doors. It's, why do you want to take the money from the police? Why do you want to take the police? And I told them that at no other time in the history of the city of Los Angeles have we given more money to the police than we do today. And you just took 10 minutes to explain to me why you don't feel safe walking your son to school. So if you ask me, I think we should look at the budget and see how we are spending that money. Because obviously, you don't feel safe. What will make you feel safe is when people have housing, when they're not in the streets, when there's no drug use in the streets in front of their children, when things are clean. And we can't do that if a quarter of our budget goes to one department. It was like sharing a story about our vision. Our vision is for everyone to have security without worrying about where to live or how to afford food. And we can achieve that with the billions and billions and billions of dollars in the city of Los Angeles budget.
Estamos casi como conectando
We're kind of
los
connecting the
puntos,
dots
¿verdad?
for
Para la
people,
gente.
right?
Porque la gente se queja de que faltan cosas.
Because they complain about
La
going
vida es
without
muy cara
basic
aquí.
needs. Life is very
Oye,
expensive
casi
here,
todas-
and there's
hay
a
una
reason
razón
for
por
that.
qué es tan caro aquí. Hay una razón porque no
The reason
estamos
is we're
haciendo
not
ese-
providing enough help, right?
Ya está cerca
You're
el
nearing the
final
end
de
of
tu
your
primer
first
año
year
siendo
on the
parte
city
del
council.
concejal de la ciudad. ¿Cómo
How would you
describirías los últimos
describe the
meses
last
para
couple of months? It's
It's
been like working on a roller coaster ride,
Como ir a Six
like
Flags y nomás
going to
para
Six
arriba,
Flags,
para
constantly
arriba,
going
para
up and
Así
down.
ha sido los últimos ya casi
That's
11
what the
meses,
past
11
almost
meses que
11
tenemos
months have
en-
been like.
en el
On December
CAM, en
13th this
diciembre
year,
13
we'll
del
have been
año,
on the city
pisamos,
council
que
for
era el
11
gran
months.
juramento.
We took our oath that
Y
day.
en el principio
The
era
beginning
muy,
was
muy difícil. Si me
very,
preguntaras
very
cómo me
hard.
sentía,
If you asked me how I
los
felt
primeros
during
meses
those
yo te hubiera
first,
dicho que yo odio
how
este
did I
lugar,
feel
odio
in the
estar
first
aquí.
months? I would have
Que
told you that
estaba muy
I hate this
pesado.
place. I
Recibimos,
hate being here. It was so draining.
Como las peleas más grandes
We decided the
comparadas
biggest
a
fights
otras
compared to other
oficinas.
offices.
Y había mucho esfuerzo
And
para
there was a
que
lot of effort
nos
to defeat
derrotaran
me and my team
a mí y
inside here.
a mi equipo. Adentro de aquí,
Obviously, in ways that you
obviamente, en
can't
maneras que no
see
se pueden ver
physically, you can
físicamente,
only feel.
nomás se pueden sentir, pero
But
tengo un equipo que
I
es
have a team.
fenomenal, que
You can see
muchos de
them
ellos son
physically,
del
not just feel
distrito,
them.
ah,
I have
tienen
a
diferentes
phenomenal team.
experiencias, y ellos
Many
me
of
han
them are
ayudado
from the
a
district and
estar
bring
ahorita
different
casi un año adentro
experiences.
con,
They've
hemos
helped me a lot.
exprimido leyes que han sido
We've been in this
aprobadas por
together
la ciudad de Los
for almost a
Ángeles,
year,
que hemos hecho
drafting laws that
propuestas
the
muy
city of
grandes en
Los
el
Angeles has
presupuesto en
adopted.
nuestro primer
We've
año y
also
hemos
made
hecho
significant
movimiento
budget proposals
en
in our
ese
first year,
aspecto.
and we've made
So yo
movement in that
ahorita me
aspect.
siento muy bien.
In our
El
first year,
trabajo que es bien
we've
pesado,
made
pero
movement in that
el
aspect.
equipo me
So,
ayuda y
so right now, I
creo que
feel
hemos
very
logrado
good.
mucho porque gente pensó que no íbamos a lograr mucho. Aquí
It's a job
especialmente
that's
gente
very
no sabía
hard,
cómo
but
íbamos a
my
hacer
team
aquí.
helps me. I
Pero
think we have
podemos
achieved
ser
a lot
diplomatic,
because people
podemos
thought
ser
that we were not
strategic.
going to achieve a
Y
lot.
pensaban que íbamos a
Here,
entrar como
especially,
una,
people did
un
not know
toro en
how
una
we
tienda
were
de
going to enter
China,
like a bull in a
de
china
puro,
shop.
de puro vidrio,
But we can do
pero
that.
podemos hacer eso. It's in our spectrum of advocacy and responses, but we can also be strategic and diplomatic, and I think that's really helped us.
Hablemos un poco sobre eso.
Let's
Y
talk a little
creo
bit about
que
that. I think
para mí, el punto
for
de esta
me,
conversación
that's the
era
point
eso.
of this
Quería hacer
conversation.
la pregunta.
I have a
y,
question.
Parece que algunos
It
de
seems
nuestros
like some
representantes
of our
tienen
representatives
sus
have their
lealtades en
loyalties
otras
in other
ciudades.
places.
¿Tú has
Have you
notado
noticed that
eso
here?
aquí?
That it's
Que como
not
que no
with the
están con
voters
nuestros
or the people of
representantes
Los Angeles?
de Los Ángeles.
O mucha gente aquí adentro de todo el edificio.
A lot of people here
Están
inside the
muy
building
conectados
are
y
very
son muy
connected and very
very responsive,
responsive to power.
al poder. Y en esta
In this
ciudad,
city,
esta
in this
sociedad,
society,
el dinero es poder,
money is power,
accesibilidad
access is
es
power.
poder, y tienes gente con mucho dinero pagando para
You have
que
people
gente
with
esté en
lots of
City
money
Hall,
paying to get
nomás para
into
que
City
esté
Hall
teniendo
just to have conversations
conversación,
over and over with the people who run the
con
city.
la gente que son los que corren la ciudad. Y la gente que
And
dona
the
tu
people who
campaña,
donate to your campaign
algo
have
muy
a very
importante
large
en
impact
este
on
caso,
who you listen
cuando
to
estás
when
haciendo
you're
tus
making your
decisiones.
decisions. That's one of the
Por eso
reasons
es una
I
de las
didn't take
razones que
any
no
money
tomé
from
dinero
special
de
interest groups
special
because
interest
I
groups,
didn't want to
porque
feel that pressure.
no quería sentir esa
It's
presión.
obvious
So sí
that
se
there
ve
are
que hay
people,
personas,
organizations,
organizaciones,
companies
compañías que
that
tienen
have
mucho más
much
acceso y
greater
poder en esta
access and
ciudad.
power in
Y
this
se
city.
nota.
And it's
Se nota.
noticeable.
Es
It's
una ciudad de
noticeable.
más de 60%
It's
de
a city
inquilinos.
of more than
Y apenas
60%
estamos
renters,
pasando
and we
protecciones para
are
que gente
only
se
just
mantenga sus
now
viviendas
passing protections so
después
people
de
can keep their
más de
homes
100 años de
after more than
existencia aquí en la
100
ciudad.
years
¿Por qué?
existing as a city.
Porque tienes más
Why?
personas que tienen
Because
más,
now there are more people
están
fighting for
peleando
those
por
who
la
have been
gente que no ha
ignored
sido
for many,
escuchada
many
por
years.
muchos años.
What were some of the adjustments you made when you began working here?
Y ya tenía como
I had already
pelo
grown
punto
some
grueso,
thick skin,
pero lo
but
que
I had to
tuve que
grow
hacerlo
it
mucho
much
más
thicker
grueso, porque el empujo o la presión,
because the
los
pressure and the
criticisms,
criticism
no nomás
didn't just
venían
come from one
de
side.
un lado, venían
It came
del
from the
del
right, the middle,
y del
and the
left.
left.
So, no pude, no, y todavía
It's
no,
not
no se
possible for
puede
everyone to be
que
happy.
todos estén feliz. Y
So
es
that's
entender eso
understanding
que,
that
porque I'm a people pleaser, you know, like I'm doing my best, but
I'm doing my best, but I learned you can't give everyone everything they want at the same time, and you have to choose how much investment you're going to make in each community at what time.
So that's been an adjustment not to try to be a people pleaser, even though it's just within me already.
What else? Lots of things. As I said before, it's like a roller coaster of emotions.
So,
The adjustment that I made is to try not to feel so many of the emotions, because my spirit, it was getting very heavy, very intense. When I was sleeping, I imagined I was counting votes and things like that, or remembering situations.
So it's an adjustment that I had to make, is kind of to remove a lot of the feelings from it.
It's only been 11 months, but it's felt like years. So that's one of the adjustments I had to make. But in all the situations that we've been through, I try to learn something, because we don't always win, but sometimes even when we lose, we win and we can learn. So I try to look at things like that too. It's not just win or lose.
How can we keep moving forward?
It's one of the few times that a community activist has had a little influence. Because of powers outside of our control, council members' availability, accessibility with the community becomes limited. How do you ensure that your proposals, or the motions you pass or laws you introduce, are really what the community needs? And how do you include the community now? There are ways to do it. First, in our office, we have someone who serves as a point person for what we call co-governing. Co-governing means creating a roundtable with everyone who's already involved in this work, including those affected by the work we do. It's a roundtable where we discuss housing, public safety, and more. And these discussions include the people. At the beginning of the year, we had a strategic session with all these different groups to lay the foundation for the policies we would start working on once we took office. So we had those meetings before taking office and another one in our first few months. Now, for all the policies we work on, we collaborate with community organizations and the community members impacted directly by these policies. For example, the tenant protection policies we passed were all accomplished in collaboration with the organizations that are working with tenants, and tenants themselves, and hearing what things they need. One of the things that is very important to our office is that we really believe that
the people who are closest to the problems are the ones closest to the solutions.
And so we try to integrate that in all the work we do, but especially with the police. Because I have my ideas, obviously. I've done a lot of work on criminal justice and abolition, so I have ideas about those things. But we try to get ideas and recommendations from the community directly. That's why we're here. As we were preparing for this interview, Jeremy and I, we talked about how, as you said, people in the community already have the solutions. So it is sometimes frustrating for me because I can't understand why their representatives ignore them. Also, another issue, one of the things I've noticed is people in the community are willing to take what they can get. That is, if you know that eventually we're going to compromise,
we can meet in the middle.
And it seems like the representatives sometimes don't even want to do that. How do we replicate your office's approach in other council districts?
No names.
No names,
No
but
names.
I
Sin nombres,
do
sin nombres.
live in CD14. Still, no names, please.
Oh, yeah, I mean, well,
You have an election coming up and you have options. And it's important that we have a person there that's responsive to what the community needs. It's the district that has more eviction filings than any other part of Los Angeles, so that election is very important. Honestly, it's like when I said that the donations to the campaigns really buy influence. It's also the communities that have more money are the communities that have the biggest voices and the biggest impact on policy. And so each district, each representative has constituencies they appreciate more or that influence them more.
Yo no sé cómo hacemos
I don't know how to make it so this process becomes a priority for the other offices.
este proceso una prioridad para ellos.
After all, a lot of people in City Hall are like, what is this person going to do to win my vote? We've seen in the past how the person whose seat I took said, I take money from developers to run my campaigns because my community doesn't have any money. And that's a common practice.
It translates to, we have whole developments going up, 700 units, non-affordable housing, projects like that. And so...
¿Cómo? How?
I mean, that's what they wanted. That's what they approved.
What about the laws?
There are laws, but there's also power. And as I said earlier,
I wish I could give you the answer of how we replicate co-governing in City Hall. I just don't think it's a priority for a lot of people because co-governing is to give people a voice who don't generally have a voice at City Hall.
And many people are fine with certain groups not having a voice at City Hall. Progressives are now a minority, a very small minority, maybe 3 out of 15 or 5 out of 15 on a good day.
On a good day. So,
on a really good day.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little more about the promises and the platform that you campaigned on. One of them was that you supported the idea of giving people without documentation the right to vote. Why is representation so important? Why is this representation so important? For me, it's and we can talk about the other promises later, but this promise is very important to me because the immigrant community pays millions and millions of dollars in taxes every year. In any restaurant you go into, the people cooking in the kitchen are immigrants from different countries. They are the heart of the city.
They're the central nervous system that makes the city run. There's over 1.3 migrants in the city of Los Angeles.
For decades, MacArthur Park has been a central point where all immigrant communities come from. I am the daughter of immigrants and have witnessed the impact of the immigrant community, not just a specific group, but all of them. It's a community that is very present here. They're paying millions of dollars in taxes, and I believe they should have the right to vote in local elections to decide where their tax money goes. A few months ago, we had to decide whether to allocate more funding to a program that supports immigrants, and some council members didn't want to allocate additional funds. And there are members of the council who didn't want to put more money in a program to give more support to lawyers for immigrants. They said, I don't know if we should spend our precious budget dollars on this program. So I asked them, let's move all the millions of taxes given to immigrants into a bank account for immigrants so they can pay for everything they need. And they didn't say anything.
But it's like, folks should have an ability to vote on the budgets that they put into. Local school board elections. Millions and millions upon young people who are migrants are going into our school system. Same thing with city council elections.
So I believe they should be able to vote in local elections.
From
8th grade until I graduated from high school, I was an undocumented, non-DACA student. I watched a wave of young people arriving from Central American countries, many speaking indigenous languages and needing people to translate for them. This is a community that is truly growing and becoming more visible. I was talking to my mom. We all have friends that for one reason or another are struggling with the immigration system. And then someone comes along, a representative that does not support them or basically doesn't give them priority. What do you have to say to those migrants who notice they're alone in the shadows, still working and paying taxes, but still feeling kind of isolated because they have no representation? There is no one advocating for them.
And I know I've been kind of depressing in my previous answers around some of this, so let me talk about lo positivo ahorita. Que aunque sí
Even though money has a big impact and influence in City Hall, what also has an impact is the people.
There is power in numbers.
There's a lot of power when we bring communities together to demand that their government does better. Here in City Hall, I think we've seen a lot of people show up to City Hall for different reasons. The only time I've seen a large turnout was right after the tapes came out. That was when the racist conversation came to light and a lot of people showed up. But also, people have to understand, after all that action, after so many people came to City Hall, that's when the process of reforming how the voting maps are drawn started. Taking action on what to do with the people on those tapes, changing the system to get them off committees and things like that. So, yes, money has power, but there's more power in the number of people. And the immigrant community is very big. There is power in their numbers. If they get organized, they can drive significant change. We live in a country that is different from a lot of the countries where members of our immigrant community come from. Here we have First Amendment rights, rights that grant freedom of speech. You can protest here. And obviously, we've seen abuse when there are protests, and people have been affected by violence, by the police, and things like that. But there's power in numbers. So if people organize, they can change a lot. And they can also elect the people who will represent their needs. It's not just the money that influences who wins those seats, because I got in and I beat someone. But it's because I had a lot of people knocking on doors. We knocked on more than 67,000 doors. That's when the process of reforming how the voting maps are drawn started. Taking action on what to do with the people on those tapes, changing the system to get them off committees and things like that.
So it's the powers in numbers and the powers in organizing, and both of those things can outbeat any money in special interest groups. I believe it.
Regresaremos en breve con más. We'll be right back with more of our interview with Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez. Everyone Eats is inspired by People's City Council, formed as a platform for different racial, economic, and environmental justice organizations to come together and fight for the city that we, the people, want. Find out more at peoplecitycouncil-la.com. Bienvenidos nuevamente a todos. Welcome back to Everyone Eats. Now more with Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez.
You mentioned it, right, a while ago? The elections are coming.
The primaries are in March.
Half of the seats in City Hall are subject to election. How do you determine which candidate you support? I talk to them, and I ask them how they made their decision in different situations, how they make decisions in different situations, who are they listening to, who are they paying attention to, where's their funding coming from, who are they prioritizing within their team, what are their values? What do they think about what happened in Echo Park? And how do they view the police's role in handling homeless encampments? If they use language that takes away people's humanity, or if they use language that gives people humanity or the community. Different things, yeah, but for me, it's who is giving you your money. I actually had a question specifically about Echo Park. I'm from Boyle Heights. Gentrification is something you see all over the city. It's real. And Echo Park has always been the example. This is what happens. This is what ends up happening in the communities. And what I've noticed and what we've noticed is that when people from a higher social class come to these poor communities, they start to complain about the sellers, about the culture. Honestly, the culture, about the people without homes. And we saw it with the situation in Echo Park. How do you expect to protect the powerless, especially in the park? I mean, I'm talking specifically about the park because Jeremy and I are talking about how for us, or for poor people, there are always people selling things. There's always music playing, and there's always people sleeping in the parks. That's normal, for one.
Yes, it should be free and open for everybody. No fences, no walls. Abierto nunca.
It should never be closed. Open 24 hours a day and night.
Y ¿por qué una cambio?
Why the change?
Sí, ¿por qué el cambio? Y
Yeah.
también,
Why the change? And also, if you have a plan to protect,
like the historical landmark that it is and the culture that it is that lives there.
Yes. So Echo Park, I mean, the lake itself, the park, it's right on the border of 1 and 13. But it represents what many parts of CD1 are looking like right now. You know, I talked about it. Perdón.
oh, sorry. As you were talking, I was thinking about it in English. That's why I said it in English.
Todo bien.
Pero el parque de Echo Park
But
es en el
Echo
borde de
Park
CD1
is
y
on the edge of
CD13,
CD1 and
y
CD13,
es una parte
and
que
it represents
representa
a
mucho
lot
lo
of
que
what's
está ocurriendo
happening in
CD1.
CD1.
Yo crecí en Highland
I
Park,
grew
he
up in
vivido ahí
Highland
toda mi
Park.
vida.
I've lived there
Y
all
la
my life,
gentrificación
and
pasó así, bien
where
rápido,
there
donde
wasn't enough
no-
organizing power to
no
protect
había
the
suficiente
tenants,
poder en
gentrification
organizing
happened
para
really
proteger a
fast.
los inquilinos. Y vimos
We lived in
building
buildings
después
after
edificio,
buildings,
apartamento, que gente
apartments,
fue desalojada.
where people were
Y ocurrió con
evicted,
nuestros
and
negocios
it happened
primero.
with businesses
So,
first.
algo que
So,
estamos haciendo
one
aquí
thing
en
we're
nuestro
doing with our
equipo es
team
tenemos un
is
CAT team,
establishing a CAT team,
Community
which
Advocacy
stands
Team,
for Community
que hace dos
Advocacy
cosas,
Team.
que va
This
y
team
trabaja con
focuses on
inquilinos
two
que están
areas.
ahorita en
First,
posición de
it meets
eviction,
with and
que
supports
necesitan
tenants
ayuda con
currently undergoing
habitability
eviction
standards, como
processes,
si hay mold,
especially
si la
those
puerta está fea,
facing habitability
y también
standards
trabajan
like
con nuestros
mold or
negocios
damaged
chicos
carpets.
en tratar de crear
Second, it works with
relaciones,
small
oportunidades
businesses
para
to
que
build
se mantengan
relationships and
como
create
están
opportunities to keep their
ahorita sus
businesses where they're
negocios, como
currently
Lincoln
located.
Heights y dichos
Opportunities
flowers,
to keep their
que
businesses
nos
where
han
they are
proveído para que
right
se pudieran
now,
mantener ahí, no
like
las
Lincoln
desalojaran de sus
Heights, Liches
negocios.
Flowers.
Y
Our
so eso
team
es lo que
helped to
estamos
keep
haciendo
them from
nomás
getting
para
evicted.
proteger lo que está ocurriendo,
And that's what we're
porque
doing to protect them because it's
está
happening
como en Highland
fast
Park,
in
está
Highland
ocurriendo en
Park.
Chinatown,
It's
está
happening in
ocurriendo en
Chinatown.
Westlake.
It's happening in
Y
Westlake.
era un neighborhood
And
que
Westlake was a neighborhood that was very low
very
income.
low income.
There
No había
hasn't been
mucha
much
inversión,
investment there, but it's
muchísimos
home to
apartamentos.
many, many
Pico
apartments.
Union, Westlake, MacArthur
Pico
Park son los
Union,
lugares más
Westlake,
densos de
and MacArthur
cualquier parte
Park are
de la
some of the
ciudad y
most
condado de
densely
Los Ángeles.
populated parts of
Y lo
both
que está
the
ocurriendo en
city
Echo Park
and county of
está
Los
ocurriendo
Angeles.
ahí también.
What's happening now in
So
Echo
lo que
Park is
estamos
also
tratando
happening
es,
there.
lo
But
que hemos
what
empezado
we've
es
done
como
so far
una
is put a
Band-Aid
Band-Aid here and a
ahí,
Band-Aid there.
pero estamos tratando de
However, now we're
ahorita
working
crear
on bigger
políticas que están
policies to
más
protect
grandes
people from
para proteger
gentrification.
contra la gentrificación. Y eso es más difícil.
And that's really
Por eso
hard because
estamos
we're
hablando
talking
de
about special interest groups. But we
haciendo
are
lo que
doing what we
podamos
can to make it happen
para
as
que
quickly as
ocurra
possible.
tan rápido.
Gente como ustedes,
People
como
like
nosotros,
you,
normalmente
like
no
us,
llegan
normally
a
don't
tener
get to have a seat
una
at the
silla
table,
ganas,
right?
¿verdad? Y
And it can also
también
be
puede ser
that
que
a lot of people here in the
gente
city are not
o
happy
quien
with
en
your
la intervención no
platform.
esté feliz con su plataforma. ¿Cómo has
How have you been
llevado
working with
trabajando con
people
personas que no están
who are not
muy
very happy with the
contentas con los
changes you have
cambios que
promised
has
or with the
prometido
platform you
o
are coming
la
with,
plataforma que vienes, especialmente cuando
especially when you could need
podría
their vote on
necesitar su
something?
voto en algo?
Sí, es algo que ha
Yes,
tardado
it's something
mucho
that has taken
para
me a long
poder
time to
llegar a
reach all
todas
the
las
communities.
comunidades.
CD1 is more
es más de
than
250,000
250,000
personas
people and
y
more than
más de
22
22
neighborhoods.
vecindarios. Y
It's
este
been
era
a
un
district where
distrito
there
donde
hasn't
no
been
ha
much
habido mucha
communication with the office
comunicación
before
con la
us.
oficina antes de nosotros. Y
All the
jamás
calls
han
and
caído
emails have
todas las
just fallen
llamadas
through the
y
cracks.
emails
Often they
oreja
haven't
con
been
orejas
answered
que no
for
están que
years.
no respondieron muchas veces
Frequently,
por
their
años.
concerns have
Mhm.
gone
O sea, tocaba
unanswered
las
for
puertas
many
y
years.
decían, ¿por qué le quieres quitar
I would
dinero
knock on
a la
doors and be asked,
policía?
why do you
Y
want to defund the
me
police?
decían, no,
People
no
would
ha
tell me,
no ha
my
respondido mi
councilmember
councilmember
hasn't
por
responded
años.
to me
Eso
for
me
years.
salían
That's what I
mayormente en
heard
las
at most
puertas.
doors.
So
So
las cosas
what
que
we are
estamos
doing
haciendo es
now
we're being
is we're
responsive.
being responsive.
Tenemos un equipo de que cuando
We have a
alguien
team
llama,
dedicated to answering
respondemos.
whenever
Si,
someone
si la
calls,
respuesta es te hablamos
and
en
if
un
the
mes,
answer
te
is,
hablamos en
we'll
un
call you
mes
back in a
y
month,
lo hacemos.
we call you back in a
Y
month.
estamos tratando
We
de
follow
empujar
through.
también la ciudad
We're
para
also
que
trying to
mueva y
push the
tome acción.
city to
Tarda
move and
7
take
años para que
action.
se arregle un sidewalk
It
aquí en
takes
la ciudad de Los
7
Ángeles,
years
al
for a
mínimo.
sidewalk to be fixed
Más
here
de
in Los
10 años en
Angeles,
muchas
at
veces.
least.
Tenemos
More than
miles
10
y
years a
miles
lot
de
of the time.
posiciones en
We have
de trabajos en la
thousands and
ciudad que
thousands of
no
jobs in
tienen
the city that don't have
trabajadores.
workers.
So, por eso los tarda tanto de arreglar
That's
las
why it takes so
cosas.
long to fix
So,
things.
de explicarle eso a la gente, explicar
To
por qué
explain
las
to
cosas
people
son
why
lentas, pero
things
estar
are
ahí
slow,
presente. Y
but
creo que ha estado
to
presente
be
en casi
there,
todas las comunidades
present.
que represento y ha podido crear relaciones y conversaciones con la gente. Y eso es lo que I think one of the most important things is people just getting to know you. And making sure your team is out there. And yeah, eso es lo que estoy tratando de hacer, be out there in the community.
Eso me hace tan
That's
interesante
very interesting.
siendo
Being someone who
you
lives in
CD14,
CD14, whose
constituents have been very very vocal for Councilmember De Leon to resign. And he just doesn't, like, what you're saying is so true. Like, these council members don't care. No, listen,
It's not important. They're literally shutting down.
Every council meeting, and por sus pantalones.
They decide to stay out of arrogance
decide seguir aquí.
in situations where
situaciones, a lo mejor eso es un poco más
maybe that's a little
extremo,
more
¿verdad?
extreme,
Pero
right?
en
But
situaciones donde a lo
in
mejor
situations
es
where it might be too
temprano
early,
para to vote them out or something like that, or
or
deciden seguir en
they refuse to step down from their position, what advice would you offer
a
people who
esas
want
personas que
to
quieren
remain
seguir
engaged?
in politics, but their council members just trash?
I would say organize your community and then organize everybody else around that person. We are a council of 15, but we have leadership, 3 leadership positions. We have a mayor's office, Puedes organizar.
What I would say to people is to organize. Put pressure on the people that are around the person in leadership.
Del council, tenemos alcaldesa, and we are elected people. Somos gente que somos elegidas por
Our constituents elected us, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a chain of command in place.
Un chain of command. Organize around that.
Usted fue el único voto
So
en contra del
you
aumento
cast the
del
only
presupuesto
vote against the LAPD budget increase.
¿Sientes algún rechazo por parte de
Have you felt any backlash from the police union or faced any consequences for voting that way?
consecuencias por votar? Hemos hablado con activistas.
We've talked to activists,
periodistas,
other
familias
journalists,
víctimas
and
de violencia
relatives
policial,
of victims of police violence who've
que sufren
experienced
acoso
harassment from the sheriff's
por the
department.
sheriff department, and
And
just como
where did you
courage y el coraje
where
para
did you
poder
find the courage to cast
ese
that vote?
voto.
Sí, fue un voto.
Yeah, it was a vote I knew I would cast. From the moment I stepped into City Hall, I told people that if there was ever a budget increase to give more money to the police, I wouldn't support it. I would vote no. From the moment I got in, I tried to vote every time it came up. Every time. Because every week, we vote in millions of dollars for the police. Not just in the budget, every week. And every time, I vote no in those situations. But all my work, almost a decade, has been to try to fix this system of police incarceration, addressing this system of police incarceration. I have seen that these systems do not help keep our communities safe. They haven't kept me safe, which is why I'm doing everything I can to create a system that truly supports people. In the budget we voted on last year, nearly 25% of the entire city of Los Angeles budget, amounting to billions of dollars, was allocated to the police. And almost all of that money will only go to pay for salaries and pensions. We gave them $20 million for new cars. We bought an $18 million helicopter for the department. At the same time, we spent, I think, $6 million on their police uniforms. That's 3 times more than what we allocate for the Youth Development Department, whose budget is only $2.3 million for the entire department. One of my Shiros, Los Angeles County Supervisor Holly Mitchell, often says that
un presupuesto es un statement of your values. A budget is a statement of your values. And I couldn't vote on a budget that gave a quarter of it to the police when we have people going hungry.
When we have people we can't help with their rent or get a job or things like that. And that's why I voted no. And I also know a lot of families that have been impacted by this violence. A lot of violence from the sheriff's department, but also from the LAPD. And that's why I do everything I can to create a system that keeps them safe. And in situations like this, where other council members that the media and the public have said are the progressive people in City Hall, who supposedly have platforms similar to you, still vote yes to give more money to the police department. How does that relationship look? For me, this work has been going on for more than a decade. I was one of the co-authors of Measure J, which happened in 2020 in Los Angeles County. I've worked on campaigns like AB 109 Reimagine, which focuses on reallocating funds away from the sheriff's department and toward community programs. And in my case, I wasn't going to change my vote for anyone. The only way I would have reconsidered my vote was if we gave less money to the police. Since that didn't happen, I signed petitions and documents that said, No more money would be allocated, and I was going to keep my word.
Si no mantengo mi palabra en esto,
If I don't keep my
¿para
word
qué
with
sigo?
this, then
You
what's
know?
the point?
Y la gente que
And the
estaba
people who
más
were
enojada
angriest
conmigo,
with me for
que con
that
ese
vote
voto,
were the
fue
group
uno-
of progressive council members,
fue el grupo de progressives, el concejal,
because we had
porque
to stay together.
tuvimos que mantenernos juntos, pero si todo
But
al frente
if
te está
everything up
diciendo
front
que
is
este
telling you that
presupuesto
this
le va a dar
budget
más
is
din-
going to
va-
give
va a dar
cops
más
more
dinero,
money,
y
and we said
nosotros
we weren't going
dijimos
to
que
do
no íbamos
that,
a hacer eso,
why would we do it?
¿por qué lo vamos a hacer? So, it was a hard vote.
Regresamos en un minuto. Back in a minute with more of our interview with Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez. Todos Comen está inspirada en el sindicato. Everyone Eats is inspired by the Los Angeles Tenants Union, a diverse tenant-led movement fighting for the human right to housing for all. A la vivienda para todos, exigiendo viviendas seguras, demanding safe, affordable housing, and universal rent control. To get involved in the union, start attending the meetings of the local chapter nearest you. Find out more at latenantsunion.org. Now, more with Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez.
That brings me to my next question, and it might sound a little nosy, but not really. Why does it sometimes seem like for council members that unified front is more important?
City Hall.
You all seem to present a unified front. City Hall, LA City Council members, they always vote almost the same together.
Progressives, they wanted to look like a front.
Why is that so important for them instead of seeing what they're really voting for? They always vote almost the same together. What are they voting for? And it seems like it's something about egos, like there's something else going on in that room.
That's not really about constituents and what you're voting for, but more so who you're friends with and who's buddies with you. ¿Por qué es así?
Because it's like that, I don't understand how it's fair. How is that fair to us? And that's why I think values are very important. Like in the next coming up election, these are the questions people should ask the candidates. What will they do once they take office? Who will they listen to? And how will they vote when faced with difficult decisions? Those questions will help people define how those people will move, because that will give a lot of definition on how people are going to move. I don't know. I can't give you clarity on why some colleagues move in some ways or want to be seen as unified.
Unified, porque para mí that doesn't make sense. So I couldn't explain it to you from my perspective because yo corrí,
I ran, I made these commitments. The people who voted, they saw what I'm going to do. And those are the people I care about.
I know they're gonna come for me, the special interest groups. They donated against me during the campaign. I have no doubt about that. But
I didn't vote for them. And I think City Hall has changed a lot. Not a lot, but a lot in the ways in which people treat each other. It has changed a lot in how they treat each other.
Like people were very cutthroat.
The energy has been different so far, and I believe it's largely because of what we bring to the table. We can have camaraderie now.
Camaraderie, like one of the things that I'm trying to do is I can work with everybody. It just won't be on everything. And then so I find
common ground to work with people because I think it's important to have the ability to communicate openly. However, the people on the council already know how I'll vote on most issues. So maybe it's putting an emotion forward for their district, and I talk with them.
Like, you know where I'm at on this. I can't
do this for you, but I am with you, and just, I think that candor is important. But what you're describing,
dando this description of, I think existed a lot, and it still does in many ways. And I think we're pushing back a little bit on that. Because that's not a functioning government. That's not democracy, Democracy is being able to see the conversation that happens with colleagues when a decision is made. I believe in witnessing democracy is so impactful.
Una de las preguntas que teníamos.
One of the questions we had when 4118 sweeps happen in your district, who makes that request? I have not requested any. There are already special enforcement zones that were implemented by the council member before me. I have not invested the energy in removing those zones because from the moment we arrived, we were on defense. There were a lot of other fires to put out. We have a lot of things that we have to fix. We have to make sure everything's okay. It's something that is in our policy orbit that we want to move on, like how we put people in housing. So it's not a priority yet. We're not doing sweeps and things like that. We're collecting garbage, but we're not moving people because... And people ask me, why don't you move that encampment that's behind the Smart and Final? Ma'am, where do you want to put them? We don't have enough housing. If I move them from here, they'll go there, and vice versa. So it's also an opportunity to educate the community because a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about that, but there we are. And I think the last question I have is, imagine that you have the full support of the council to alter the status quo. What changes could you see to satisfy the needs of our communities? The first is the budget.
That our budget meets the needs of our communities. So that's
number one, to put a budget that meets the needs of the city for our communities. Number two is safe street infrastructure. A lot of people have been hit and injured on our streets. A public transportation system and safe street infrastructure have been implemented to help people move around without cars. That's super important. And then there's housing. We have over 6,000 housing units that are about to expire at affordable housing covenants. We need a plan to maintain them and build at least 10,000 social housing units per year. In Vienna, they build 10,000 social housing units per year. How come we can't build social housing here in the city of Los Angeles? We have a lot of properties in the city of Los Angeles. In my district, we have the Lincoln Heights Jail, which is empty, full of asbestos and birds. I want to put social housing there so that our youth, our elders, our families all have a place to live. So for me, those are the things: the budget, safe street infrastructure, and access to housing and affordable housing protections. Affordable housing that already exists. Social housing. Creating social housing here in the city. Thank you very much for talking to us and explaining how City Hall works a little more. And it seems like it's slow, but it does work. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Vivienda para todos. Housing for everyone. Safety. Free healthcare. A world without police or prisons. It's all available if we fight for it together. Thanks so much to Councilmember Eunisses Hernandez for coming on the show. You can learn more about her work at City Hall at cd1.lacity.gov. Gracias por escuchar. Thanks for listening to Everyone Eats. The show is hosted by me, Jeremy Bowditch. I'm also a producer on the show. So is Carmen Gonzalez, Joy Sanford, and Dan Gallucci. The show is recorded at Boyle Heights Beat in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles, California. Follow the show on social media at Everyone Eats LA and our website, everyoneeats.la.